The rope creaks overhead. Your arms are wrenched behind you and the fibers already bite. One heartbeat later, whoosh, you drop, jerk short, and both shoulders rip from their sockets. You're hanging half standing, half flying while your muscles shred like wet tissue. Congrats, you've just met the strapado, history's nastiest way to turn a piece of rope into a confession machine. Tonight we'll chase that cord from medieval torture chambers to public gallows, from slow strangulation to the mathematical crack of the long drop. By the end, you'll see how one strand became the world's favorite emblem of justice and of terror. Most of us picture hanging as a gallows on a dusty frontier, not drop done. Reality check. For 1,000 years, the same rope doubled as a torture tool, a science experiment, and a crowd-pulling circus. We'll unpack 3 chapters. 1. The strapado, where pain not death was the goal. 2. The long drop, where math tried to outsmart biology and sometimes did. 3. England's nightmare recipe, hanged, drawn, quartered where the noose was only opening night. Stick around. The physics gets grim and the politics even worse. Picture yourself in 1493 Seville, a bookseller who's been accused of faking indulgences. The Inquisition knocks. You're marched to the Aljaferra Palace, arms yanked back, wrists bound with damp hemp. The cord is tossed over a beam and hauled by 2 jailers using a crank. Your feet leave the floor. First inch, nothing. Second inch, shoulders click. Third inch, pop, pop, sinew snaps. That's basic strapado, also called the corda or reverse hanging. No blood, no gore, just gravity and your own weight doing the dirty work. Variants pile on agony. Sometimes guards tie your hands in front, strap iron weights to your ankles, then hoist you so your hips feel like they're folding backward. Another version adds a jerking. You're hauled to the ceiling, dropped a foot, and stop dead, multiplying the force on fragile joints. Spanish manuals recommended 20 minutes for heresy suspects. German inquisitors stretched it to 40. Survivors, if they confessed, walked away with permanent nerve damage and arms that hung like empty sleeves. Refuse to talk and you might graduate to the rack, but the strapado had already done the psychological heavy lifting. Pain without scars meant no martyrdom portraits, just a voice whispering, "Next time we raise the rope higher." Out of the dungeon, into the courtyard. By the 5th century, Anglo-Saxon chieftains were using ropes to settle blood feuds. No drop, no sudden stop, just a branch, a noose, and slow suffocation while relatives watched. Zip to 1196. William Fitzisbert, rebel against London's mayor, is dragged to Tyburn and strung up so the crowd can yank his legs for tips, literally helping gravity along. Why choose hanging over sword or fire? Economics. Any village had a tree, any sailor could tie a knot. Visibility mattered too. A body left to swing became a billboard that read, "Crime doesn't pay." English judges formalized it in the 13th century. 72 offenses earned the rope, from homicide to pocketing a shilling. By 1750 you could hang for forging a 10-pound note or cutting down a sapling. They dubbed it the Bloody Code, though blood was the one thing rarely spilled. Quick deaths make poor theater, but slow ones make worse PR. Irish surgeon Samuel Houghton cracked the puzzle in 1858. Weigh the prisoner, divide by a constant, measure the drop, and if the sums hold, the neck breaks cleanly between the 2nd and 3rd vertebrae. Instant blackout, severed spinal cord, minimal twitching. Britain's new table of drops rippled across the empire. 1872 Jamaica, 1870 for Melbourne, 1887 Calcutta. Yet the math lived or died on the hangman's skill. John Ellis, Britain's most famous executioner, bragged he could judge a man's weight to the pound. Once, facing a 123 lb embezzler, he mismeasured by 2 inches. The poor soul strangled 8 minutes while reporters counted heartbeats. Japan adopted long drop in 1873 and still uses it. Inmates learn how to walk 7 paces to the trapdoor. Officials swear the death is instantaneous, but a 2018 leak revealed the chamber still reeks of lavender spray, trying to hide the inevitable bowel release. Science meets shame, one cord at a time. If stories like this make you rethink justice, hit subscribe. I post a new dark history dive every week, and the algorithm only shows the next one if you wave. So smash or gently tap that button. We've had enough violence for one night. High treason in England earned a punishment so theatrical Dante would have blushed. First you're dragged on a hurdle to the scaffold. Then you're hanged, but only to the edge of blackout. Next comes the bit polite historians gloss over: disembowelment, burning entrails held before your eyes. Finally you're beheaded and quartered, chunks mailed to the realm's corners. The ritual was codified 1352 after the Peasants' Revolt. William Wallace endured it in 1305, Scottish knight reduced to butcher's diagrams. Guy Fawkes dodged the worst by leaping from the scaffold and snapping his neck. Crowd cheered anyway. Women were spared the spectacle. Traitorous ladies were burned instead. For decency, Parliament quietly ditched a disemboweling in 1814. The whole penalty vanished in 1870. Yet memory stuck. As late as 1940, British kids could buy penny postcards of Wallace's quartered effigy. Proof terror ages well when it's pocket-sized. 13 coils is the British norm, each rap calculated to crush the carotid without closing the windpipe. American hangmen liked 6 coils, flat finish, more cowboy, less engineer. Hemp versus Manila? Hemp soaks up water and swells, giving a faster choke. Manila stays dry but can snap under heavy loads. The knot sits under the left ear. The drop jerks the head sideways, severing the spine. Miss the spot and the prisoner suffocates, wide awake, eyes bulging, tongue ballooning, legs dancing, what Victorians called the Paddington polka. Autopsy ledgers from 1890 read like carpentry notes: bilateral vertebral breaks in 68%, hyoid crush in 12%, full decapitation in 3%. Crowds hated decapitation, too French, too messy. Hangmen kept sandbags to test the drop the night before. If the bag burst, they shortened the rope. Yap, midnight physics homework with a life on the line. 17th century Londoners treated hanging day like a bank holiday. Hawkers sold gingerbread men with currant eyes. Kids played tug of war with leftover rope. Pickpockets worked the crowd, irony not lost on anyone. Preachers mounted portable pulpits, warning onlookers they could be next. When the trap slammed, the mob erupted. Cheers for a clean kill, boos for a slow one. By 1800 the mood curdled. Reformers argued public suffering bred public callousness. In 1868 Britain moved executions behind prison walls. The last U.S. public hanging drew 20,000 to Owensboro, Kentucky, 1936. Vendors sold chunks of the rope for 50 cents. Afterward the state banned outdoor gallows, not for mercy, but because the carnival embarrassed officials. The rope slipped from spectacle to paperwork. Yet fascination never died. Today eBay bans new sales. Yet a strand from Ellis's private stash fetched £1,700 in 2019. History twisted into a collectible. A handful walked away. In 1705 highwayman John Smith, half-hanged Smith, dangled 15 minutes, was cut down, revived by onlookers, granted life because the sentence read hanged until dead, and technically he had been. He became a celebrity preacher, warning others against sin until natural death 14 years later. Across the Atlantic, 14-year-old George Stinney was electrocuted in 1944, but we have near-miss rope stories. Nebraska's necktie Zachariah Brune survived 3 botched drops in 1889 when the rope snapped repeatedly. Each retry left him more shattered. He begged for bullets instead. The state obliged by switching to a firing squad, proof that mercy sometimes means swapping weapons, not canceling the sentence. Japan's death chamber still hides a 4-meter drop. Guards press one of 3 buttons so no one knows whose finger launched a trap. In Iran, cranes hoist condemned men above commuting traffic. Slow strangulation repurposed as rush hour warning. Singapore mandates hanging for drug trafficking. A policy critics call zero tolerance, supporters zero relapse. A few U.S. states keep nooses on standby if lethal injection drugs dry up. Every jurisdiction claims humanity. We break the neck, we don't choke the throat. Yet leaked autopsies list pulmonary edema, petechial hemorrhage. Medics speak for still awful. The rope, once cutting-edge science, feels medieval again. From the strapado's measured agony to the long drop's merciful crack, The history of hanging is the history of power wearing a cord. Each era tweaked the knot to fit its worries. Inquisitors wanted names, empires wanted order, crowds wanted closure. The rope delivered cheap, portable, endlessly adaptable. Today we like our violence sanitized, yet the tale's still being written in execution chambers and crane yards. Remember, whenever justice is tied up, someone, somewhere, feels that old tug. Let's keep talking, because the past pulls hardest when we pretend not to notice. If these stories punched you in the gut, hopefully without dislocating anything, subscribe and drop a comment. Which part rattled you most? The math, the quartering, or the fact cranes still moonlight as gallows? I read every thought, grim or otherwise. See you next week for another tour through history's darker corners, no rope required.